Hello guys, this is Avia bringing to you our presentation. Our group focused on the infamous laundry detergent advertisement by the company Xiaobi. The advertisement was released in May 2016. It was spread across social media platforms rapidly, especially amongst Western audiences. Many negative criticisms were made, calling the advertisement racist and unnecessary. So what was so wrong with this advertisement? The key issue was that a paint-stained African-American man was pushed into a washing machine with the detergent product in his mouth, and he emerged as a clean Chinese man.
The advertisement was first released on Youku, a popular Chinese video sharing platform. The video garnered little attention on home grounds, but when it was broadcasted on Western media, it received exponential traction. News media and entertainment outlets even referred to it as the most racist TV commercial ever made. The reason why this happened was because Chinese culture typically values white skin over darker tones, and it associates fair skin with cleanliness and wealth, whereas dark skin is associated with filth and the need to work outdoors under the sun. This often plays out in how people in China tend to consciously seek to lighten their skin through cosmetic means and daily avoidance of the sun. There's also a stereotypical mindset against the African American community in China. Therefore, because of this lack of diversity, it has resulted in a more muted sensitivity towards racism, and this probably accounts for why the company felt that it was acceptable to show such race-sensitive content for a public platform.
The primary issue surrounding the ad began when it was criticized by Western viewers, who called out the use of the African-American man and his transformation into a fair Chinese man as blatantly racist and insensitive. However, Xiaobi defended the advertisement's intentions to have been simply aimed at marketing their product, with the use of the African-American man being purely for humor rather than as an indirect criticism of the community. Furthermore, Xiaobi maintained that the advertisement was intended to cater to a local audience in China and not a foreign market, and thus, foreign sensitivities were not factored into their considerations when making the advertisement. It is also not entirely impossible to say that the Western viewers were unfounded in their own claims and reactions, as both sides approached the matter with their own set of perceptions and cultural backings to their claims. While Xiaobi eventually released a formal apology for their advertisement, their initial reaction to the outcry can be said to have been rather telling towards the mindset in which China perceives racial sensitivity. The goal of advertisements in general are to promote a product or a service. Hence, it can be said that Xiaobi had simply sought to factor in the predominant beauty standards in China, that being the preference for fair-skinned younger men, in order to get across how effective their product was in achieving a desired outcome to its target audience. This being said, conscious discrimination, whether directly or indirectly, can be said to have not been the intent of using an African-American man for the advertisement, as it was not criticism of the community that was being put into focus, but rather the effectiveness of the product. In short, from the Chinese perspective, they saw the transformation of the dark-skinned man to a fair-skinned man as a punchline, a harmless joke to deliver a message effectively while injecting humor to make it memorable among their target audience. From the Western media's viewpoint, it is specifically the portrayal of dark-skinned people being played off as a joke that makes the advertisement a racially insensitive one, as such representations have virtually no place within Western media, for fear of being called out as discriminatory, or worse, insightful of hate-mongering or deliberate marginalization of a protected minority. China, in a sense, can be said to lack as in-depth a culture of racial sensitivity. This is compared to Western cultures, which have proportionately greater racial diversity and thus a cultivated pressure to maintain multiculturalism, tolerance, and sensitivity. Such societies are thus quicker at picking out any potentially racist undertone.
While Asian countries are usually depicted as higher context cultures, relative to this particular subject revolving around race, China is the lower context culture, and the West is of relatively higher context. Historically, China has been faced with very low numbers of migrants of African descent. The West, however, has a much longer historical context with African descendants, even accounting for the enslavement of Africans. Hence, it's only natural for the West to be much more sensitive towards racial representation. Chinese society also, in this context, can be considered to have lower uncertainty avoidance. In order to promote their product, their method of advertising took a risk to appeal to their local audience. Xiaobi turned to potentially offensive humor as an attempt at effective marketing. The company even went as far as to copy an older Italian detergent ad, which was the subject of controversy and backlash for being racially charged. On the contrary, in the Western society, whereby there's greater ethnic diversity, companies are much more careful with their communicative methods, especially if it involves threading in topics that could that could result in backlash. In this incident, the Chinese have displayed negative face orientation. They want to be free and autonomous in their decisions, with little intervention from third parties. Taopi even mentioned that they had no intentions of releasing this advertisement to a global audience, hinting that they were not completely unaware of the racial undertones of the commercial. Hence, they knew better than to include a global audience. The spokesperson's first response to the criticism was for the critics to lighten up, showing that the Chinese company did not appreciate other countries involving themselves with the commercial. On the other hand, Western society adopts positive face orientation as they want to feel included and liked by others. Through the Western media's response to the advertisement, it was apparent they will take the stand to create a self-portrayal of inclusiveness and positivity.
So some of our proposed strategies include educating the Chinese people, especially the marketing sector. This is to ensure that they will be aware of the consequences of unwarranted publicity. Secondly, at an individual level, the company could potentially collaborate with an African company in order to develop group events between the two different cultures. This is to increase the contact time between the Chinese and the Africans to show that stereotypes are not always correct. Next, at a communicative level, social media in China is exclusive to their country, for example, Weibo, WeChat, and Youku. They are not often exposed to media content from outside their country, and hence we should encourage their media makers to be made more aware of foreign media so that they will be more culturally aware when producing their own content. As this matter does not occur only in adults but also in children, this problem should be tackled on a structural level. For instance, we could broaden the school curriculum to educate the children from young on the different cultures. In Singapore, we have social studies on the issue of ethnocentrism, which is a serious problem in China as they evaluate other cultures according to the customs of their own culture.
Politicians could promote policies that seek to increase equality and respect between different groups. However, the Western culture is not completely fault-free too. There are many racial biases in the Western culture, including Asian stereotypes. Hence, if one party is expected to be racially sensitive, the other should be too. The above strategies were based on some core concepts. Firstly, the issue stemmed from societal level ignorance when the Chinese population thought that nothing was wrong with the advertisement. Those from a Western culture, however, thought differently. Hence, they won't know about the taboos of the other culture. Thus, it is important to educate them to curb against this lack of knowledge. For example, civic action could be used to fight the stereotypes the Chinese have towards African Americans. And again, as stated above, we should make use of the same strategy to combat against the Chinese stereotypes found in Western cultures. Now we conclude our presentation. Thanks for tuning in.